Yo homes, welcome back to another video, and in this one we'll discuss briefly about Stoicism, what it is, and two great Stoic philosophers. So let's begin. Let us start with the founder of the philosophy of Stoicism, which is very obvious, and his name was Zeno. He was a philosopher from in the early 3rd century BC. He lived in Citium in Athena. In fact, Stoicism was initially known as Zenoism from his name, of course, but it was soon dropped off to avoid the philosophy being turned to avoid the philosophy from turning into a cult of personality, which actually has happened quite a few times in history. A good example would be with Marxism, like his communism and Marxism. That's different. Maybe we'll discuss in some other video. And as a matter of fact, he studied under Crates, another great philosopher. Besides other philosophers from the Megarian school of philosophy, another ancient Greek thing. Those Greek folks were really great, He started teaching in the Colonnade in the Agora, which is also known as Stoia Poikile, which kind of means a torch. And that Stoia Poikile is where the term Stoic comes from, because the Colonnade was where Zeno and his followers used to come together to discuss their ideas. Coming about his philosophy, he divided philosophy into three parts, which are logic, physics, and ethics. The most important being ethics, but we'll get to that later. Let's start with physics. According to Zeno, the entire universe is one single reasoning entity, like everything is part of the whole part. And coming to ethics, which is the biggest thing about Stoicism, and it's according to Zeno, virtue is what everyone must ultimately strive for. Everything else is for the virtue to act upon. Nothing is good or bad on itself. Blah blah blah. Here, another strong opinion of his is that virtue and vice cannot coexist on the same thing together. Like if something is virtuous, it cannot have vice, and since we should all strive for being virtuous, we should actively remove the negative or non-virtuous decisions and actions and replace them with virtuous ones. And coming to logic, Zeno describes there are four stages in the process leading to true knowledge, which are perception, assent, comprehension, and then finally true knowledge. To this, he has a explanation, a display. Let's get to that. To describe the four stages of knowledge, he stretched out his fingers and showed the palm of his hands, which is perception, he said. It's the beginning of knowledge. Then when he had closed his fingers a little, he described it as assent. Assent is like this. Afterwards, when he completely closed his hand, making it a fist, he said that was comprehension. And when he brought his hand against his right and it took a firm and tight hold of his fist, he said that was knowledge, a firm conclusion. And that's something only the wise beings have, and that's what we should strive for, true knowledge, and also being virtuous. Now let's move on to another great Stoic philosopher, someone who popularized the idea the most. And so now let's move on to the most famous Stoic philosopher who is famous for being stoic. Let us welcome the philosopher king Marcus Aurelius. In fact, if you have heard about Stoicism, you have definitely heard about him, even if you might not know who Zeno was until a few seconds before. Coming to which, do like and subscribe this channel, so that you can stay updated for more similar videos. That would be great. And Marcus Aurelius Antoninus was a Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor from 161 to 180. He was the emperor in that period. He was born before that. He was homeschooled, and in his autobiography kind of thing, he thanks his guardians for homeschooling him. He straight up took the dress and habits of the philosophers in April 132 at the behest of Diognetus. He even started sleeping on the floor, although he was under the guardianship of a pretty rich family. He kept doing that until his mother convinced him to stop that and sleep on a bed. Interesting. He was interesting guy. In 139, he became Princeps Juventutis and took the name Marcus Aurelius Furius Caesar. And about that, he later cautioned himself about the name, about not taking it seriously. See that you do not turn into a Caesar. Do not be dipped into that purple dye, for that can happen. For as you know, by history, Caesar wasn't a great ruler. He was a great conqueror, but not a great ruler. Although Shakespeare kind of whitewashed him, but that's different. If you look actual history, he wasn't that great. Just a good conqueror. Being homeschooled, he had several tutors, and the one who had the most influence on him among them was his Latin tutor and the great orator of that time, Fronto. They were kind of very proud of each other and kept in good touch. But it wasn't Fronto who introduced him to Stoicism. In fact, Fronto wasn't a Stoic. He was introduced to Stoicism by Apollonius, while Quintus Junius Rusticus, who is considered the true successor of Seneca. Seneca was another great Stoic philosopher before him, and he had the biggest influence on Marcus. He pretty much became the sole emperor of Rome in 161, and he was soon granted the name Augustus, the title Imperator, and formally elected as Pontifex Maximus, which is being the chief priest of all official cults in Rome at then. But he, being an emperor wasn't his idea ever. Like, he didn't want to be an emperor, and the imperial office didn't attract him much because he was more attracted to the philosophical way of life, the philosopher's way of life. But being Stoic, he accepted that as his duty and went on to become a great king. In fact, he kind of insisted the Senate to grant his brother Lucius equal powers, and due to which that was the first time ever Rome was simultaneously ruled by more than one emperor at the same time. Marcus became Imperator Caesar Marcus Aurelius Antoninus Augustus, while Lucius became Imperator Caesar Lucius Aurelius Furius Augustus. This Imperator and Augustus comes with big ruler. On their accession, which is the ceremony of accepting a new ruler, Lucius and Marcus donated 5,000 denarii per capita to the militia, even more than that to the officers, and devalued the Roman currency. Now, their exception, as the emperor was kind of popular and supported by the mass, they still did it to make sure there wasn't any future military coups, because the military had the power to act independently like in Rome. That was a possibility and had happened. So kind of smart move. But both of them were kind of popular as rulers because unlike the other Roman rulers the people had before them, they weren't that pompous and kind of down to earth, and people liked that. They also promoted the freedom of speech because it didn't matter to them. They were kind of good emperors. That's what democracy is about. And Marcus specifically wasn't that he didn't have a much healthy life, and plus his rule as the Roman emperor, he faced several wars, but he successfully managed to keep Rome pretty peaceful and safe during that period. Besides being a great ruler, he also took keen interest in the legislatives, and his skills with that on the theory and practice of legislation gained him praise of the professional jurists, who considered him to be not just a just ruler but also skilled in law. About his stoicism, Cassius Dio, a great historian, remarks that on Marcus' first days as consular to Antoninus to his final days as the Roman emperor, he remained the same person and did not change in the least. And that kind of what stoicism is about: being indifferent to your surroundings, especially about the stuff you can't control. And we'll discuss that right now. So, what exactly is this stoicism? But let's get into that. But before that, I'm also active on other social media platforms, especially Instagram. Links in the description below. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe. And coming to the dictionary definition of stoicism, it's a noun which means the endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feelings and without complaint, which is a kind of the modern rendition of stoicism. It's a little bit different from what it was in the ancient days, but it's the summary and the most important part of it, because some part of it is outdated, like most philosophy tend to be after a time. It's a philosophy of personal ethics informed by a system of logic and view on the natural world, which Zeno described in his three parts of philosophy: the logic, the physics, and ethics. As I said, some part of it is outdated, which is the physics part, because science has come a long way since then. But that's completely ignored in the modern rendition of it. So that's not an issue. We might get to that in some other video, which you should subscribe if you don't want to miss. Stoics are known for teaching that virtue is the only good for humans. Everything else, the other materials, health, wealth, etc., are not good or bad on themselves, but they are materials for virtue to act upon. Which is why the thing about indifference comes from, which is why Marcus is so praised because of being the same person before and after being a Roman emperor. He didn't let the increase in riches change him as a person, and that's the main lesson. That's the most important part of being a Stoic, the virtuous part. And according to Stoicism, the best indication of a person's nature is not what he says, but what he does, which is pretty obvious, although people get fooled by words pretty easily. Please don't be dumb. And if you mean something, act on it. Don't just say. Even if your act is negligible compared to what you want it to be, start somewhere, and soon you will get better at it. Blah blah blah. Baby steps. Now, today's Stoics, some of the Stoics are popular, although Zeno the founder is not so much. The most popular are Marcus Aurelius, who we just discussed, and the two are Epictetus and Seneca. You must have heard about Seneca. He is really popular in philosophical studies. Great good. As I mentioned, in modern terms, the term stoic is used to refer to a person who is indifferent to pain, pleasure, grief, or joy, being the same person, and it was cited as a noun in 1597 and as an adjective in 1596. But that's a bit different from what it started out as, but that's the most important part of it. What Stoicism did is it provides a unified code of the world, which is how philosophy started before science took up the job and started explaining stuff better about the physics. But so far science doesn't explain the ethical part of it, which is why philosophy is still relevant. The primary aspect of Stoicism surrounds around being a better person, about a person's ethical well-being, and that's what the most valuable part of it is. And according to Stoicism, the better person you are, the more in tune with the will of nature you are, the better understanding you have about the universal reason. The quote being, virtue consists in a will that is in agreement with nature. In fact, if you want to make a summary of the Stoic way of life, the Stoic philosophy, we can do it using two quotes of two famous Stoic philosophers, Cleanthes and Epictetus. Cleanthes opined that, according to Cleanthes, the wicked man is like a dog tied to a cart and compelled to go wherever it does. While according to Epictetus, a virtuous person on the other hand would be free from the dictation, those forced dictation, as the surrounding doesn't affect him. He would be sick and yet be happy, in burial and yet be happy, dying and yet be happy, in exile and yet be happy, in disgrace and yet be happy. Which is kinda the way of life Marcus set an example of. He wasn't that healthy. He had severe health issues throughout his rule. He wasn't Emperor of Rome in the perfect time. He had to face several wars. He wasn't trained to be a king. He didn't want to be a king. Yet he took up the duty and completed his duty with perfection. He was a great king despite his hardships. And that's what we should strive to be the best version of ourselves instead of getting affected by stuff that is out of our control. Control what we can improve ourselves and be a stoic, I guess. Also coming to the second most important modern rendition of Stoicism is about the power of indifference. Which is the less you care about stuff, the more control you have on your life. In fact, even if it's about something you excel at, the more emotionally distant the more emotional distance you keep from it, the more informed and logical decisions you'll be able to take. For example, if you care being a designer, with that analogy, for example, if you care too much about a design, you might not take in more logical and informed decisions about the goal of the design. For example, if the design is about making a sale ultimately, and you are all hooked up about the aesthetics of the design, you might slowly make decisions that are not the best decisions about that goal. Another example of this comes about being doctors, and about that I'll let one of my favorite fictional characters, Dr. Gregory House, take it from me for a few seconds.
It's easy if you don't give a crap about it. That's a good thing. If emotions made you act rationally, well, they wouldn't be called emotions, right? That's why we have this nice division of labor. You hold his hand, I get him better. If I start tucking him in at night, well, that's not fair to you guys. And if you start prescribing medicine, well, that's not fair to me.
So I hope you liked the video. Once again, do subscribe for more so that you don't miss the other one. I upload regular content, approximately 2 videos per week, although I missed the last one, sorry about that. And also I'm active on other social media platforms, especially on Instagram, link in the description below. I also make stock elements. You can get them from my 2020 and Shutterstock accounts, also link in the description below. And keep improving yourself and stay above the crowd. Be better. You don't have to be perfect, just be better than who you are yesterday. Hope to see you again. Till then,